Welcome to the History and Heritage Podcast with me, Liam Blake. Join me as we uncover hidden stories and insights that shaped our world. From mysteries to legacies, join us on this journey through time. If you want to understand a place, look at the animals that stayed behind. Over the past months, our Native Breed series has taken us across Ireland's bogs, mountains, pastures and coasts. We've met horses, dogs and livestock, and bees, whose stories stretch deep into our shared past. Some world famous, others barely remembered. This is the last of those breed profiles, the closing chapter in this particular journey. And it's fitting that we end with two survivors, one from the hunting fields and one from the rocky Atlantic shore, both saved from the brink by the stubbornness of the people who cared enough to try. We start with the Kerry Beagle, a name that can mislead the uninitiated. This is no neat little English beagle bred for rabbits in country lanes. The Kerry Beagle is a rangy, deep-chested hound bred for endurance over long hunts. Its presence in Ireland is old enough to be tangled in legend. Some historians trace its ancestry to the Gair, the great hounds of the Celtic world. These were dogs that went to war alongside men, appear in Irish sagas like the Táin Bó Cúailnge, and were famed for tracking wounded deer over great distances. It's possible that these hounds were crossed with imported breeds during the Norman period, when hunting became formalised under new laws. By the 1500s, the Brehon laws had been replaced by the English hunting regulations, which restricted large game hunting to the elite. The Kerry Beagle likely developed under this system, refined as a specialist scent hound for stag and later fox hunting. The oldest pedigrees we have date from 1794, meticulously kept at Scarteen House in County Limerick by the Ryan family. The Ryan's black and tan pack became the stuff of legend. Scarteen hounds were sent as far afield as Scotland and France, often as diplomatic gifts between hunting circles. Accounts from 18th century hunt diaries describe them as working the Black Banks in County Kerry, dense scrubland where deer would seek refuge, and being able to drive quarry out into open country for the mounted field. In the pre-famine decades, Kerry Beagles were a common sight in Munster's hunting country. They were valued for what was called their cold nose, the ability to follow an old scent hours after it was laid. That made them ideal for deer and hare, which might travel long distances before being sighted. Their deep baying call was not just functional. It was part of the ritual of the hunt. In rural folklore, hearing the so-called music of a beagle pack on a frosty morning was considered a sign of good luck for the coming season. Daniel O'Connell's pack at Derrynane in the 1830s reflected the breed's social status. Hunting was more than a leisure. It was a political stage. For O'Connell, inviting allies to a hunt was a way to consolidate influence. But the Great Famine changed everything. As hunger deepened, hunting became a symbol of privilege and insensitivity. In 1847, reports from Kerry and Limerick mentioned packs being destroyed, sometimes poisoned, sometimes sold off discreetly, to avoid violent reprisals. The Ryan family at Scarteen managed to keep their hounds intact, though they were forced to reduce the numbers. The famine years left an enduring mark. Many smaller packs in Clare and Cork never reformed. The Kerry Beagle's survival through the land war of the 1880s was another feat. With boycotts and field closures, organised hunts became political flashpoints. Yet the Ryans adapted, hunting in more discreet areas and focusing on hare and fox when deer became scarce. By the early 20th century, the Kerry Beagle was almost invisible outside Scarteen. Mechanised transport reduced the need for mounted hunts, and changing land use, fencing, tillage, and forestry broke up the open runs the breed needed. 2 world wars strained rural economies, and by the 1960s, numbers were perilously low. Unlike the Irish Wolfhound, which had a romantic revival, the Kerry Beagle had no strong lobby. It was kept alive by a handful of enthusiasts, often in family lines handed down quietly. Recognition came in 1991 when the Irish Kennel Club finally listed the Kerry Beagle as a native breed. It was a turning point, opening the door for controlled breeding outside Scarteen and enabling the hound to appear in dog shows. Authors like Anne Holland and David Alderton included it in breed encyclopedias, while oral histories collected in the 2000s captured stories from older huntsmen about the big beagles of their youth. In 2023, Emer Walker's The Complete Guide to the Rare Irish Hound brought together this patchwork of history into a coherent account with photographs and testimonies from the last living keepers of pure lines. Yet, the breed is still classed as vulnerable. It has no Fédération Cynologique Internationale, also known as FCI, recognition, and for those wondering, the FCI is basically the FIFA of dogs, meaning limited export potential, and numbers remain in the low hundreds. But it has something more important: continuity. Every Kerry Beagle alive today carries the scent memory and physical stamina of dogs that once ran with Gaelic chieftains, Anglo-Irish landlords, and farmers whose pride was measured in the cry of a good hound on a winter's morning. And if you're someone who loves seeing rare breeds up close, there's an event worth marking in your calendar. Bunratty Castle and Folk Park is hosting a Rare Breeds Day as part of National Heritage Week on Saturday, August 17th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. In collaboration with the Irish Native Rare Breed Society, this family-friendly event will showcase Ireland's treasured native livestock breeds with expert talks, hands-on activities, and the chance to meet the animals themselves. There will be craft demonstrations, traditional displays, and even food tastings made from produce linked to the rare breeds. It's a chance not just to see history, but to hear from the people working to keep it alive, all in the atmospheric setting of one of Ireland's most iconic folk parks. From the hunting fields of Limerick, we head west, far west, into the stone-walled patchwork of southern Connemara. Here, the Cladoir sheep once grazed the very edges of the tide, feeding on kelp and the golden seaweed washed up in winter storms. These sheep were not market animals in the modern sense. They were part of a household economy, kept in tiny flocks alongside poultry and perhaps a cow, and shorn when the fleece was ready rather than to a fixed schedule. The name Cladoir comes from the Irish clady, meaning shore. That's where they thrived, in the salt-sprayed pastures where grass grew sparse but mineral-rich, and where their grazing helped prevent the spread of coarse scrub. Their wool, fine and soft yet resilient, was ideal for hand-spinning. In Connemara, fleeces were often blended with local mountain sheep wool to balance softness and durability, producing yarn used in heavy waterproof clothing that defined West Coast life. Agricultural reports from the mid-19th century reflect a dismissive official attitude. In 1854, a congested district board's inspector described the sheep of South Connemara as diminutive, yielding scant carcass of little commercial value. But within the community, they were valued for exactly those traits. Small enough to manage on poor land, tough enough to withstand Atlantic storms, and producing fleece suited to local needs. Oral histories collected by the National Folklore Commission in the 1930s mention women shearing Cladoir 3 times a year, often using the spring clip for knitting stockings and the autumn clip for weaving cloth. By the 1890s, the push to what was called improve Irish sheep with imported breeds was relentless. Cheviots and Scotch blackface sheep arrived in increasing numbers, their larger frames and faster fattening rates appealing to markets in Britain. The Cladoir retreated further into marginal coastline plots, surviving only where larger breeds would not thrive. By the 1980s, formal efforts to preserve them, notably by Michael O'Toole in the Mam Research Station, had some success, but funding cuts and the dispersal of flocks ended the project. For years, the Cladoir was thought extinct. Then, in 2001, Tom King of Westport began to follow up local claims of the old shore sheep. His search took him across Connemara, speaking to elderly farmers who remembered the breed from their childhood. In isolated pockets, he found them, smaller, lighter, and finer fleeced than modern types, still grazing seaweed at low tide. He built a flock, and in 2019, the National Parks and Wildlife Service purchased it for the Connemara National Park. The 2020 DNA testing by Weatherby Scientific was decisive. 56 animals carried unique genetic markers consistent with the old Cladoir. That finding launched a structured breeding program, with Teagasc scientists overseeing selection to maximize genetic diversity while preserving breed traits. Local school and heritage groups have been brought in, giving children the chance to see and learn about the sheep that once clothed their great-grandparents. Fleeces are now sold in small batches to hand spinners, and there are plans to create limited-run Connemara garments from Cladoir wool, reconnecting the breed to its cultural roots. The Cladoir survival matters for more than nostalgia. Its adaptation to poor coastal pasture and its ability to thrive without supplementary feeding makes it a model for low-input, sustainable livestock keeping. It is a genetic resource, a cultural artifact, and a living reminder of a coastal way of life shaped by scarcity, ingenuity, and resilience. In both the Kerry Beagle and the Cladoir Sheep, the same truth emerges. They survived not because they were profitable, but because someone cared. These breeds are threads in the fabric of Irish rural heritage, fragile and easily lost, but immeasurably valuable. And so, we close the Native Breed series. Across these episodes, we've seen how animals, from the famous to the forgotten, carry history in their bones, in their work, and in their relationships with us. The Kerry Beagle and the Cladoir Sheep are two more reasons to keep looking for what's left, to notice it before it's too late. I'm Liam Blake, and this is the History and Heritage Podcast. You can listen to this and all episodes wherever you get your podcasts, and follow me on Instagram at Liam Blake Podcaster for updates, stories, and looks at the people and animals who keep Ireland's traditions alive.